right, so good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time, and I know we have a ton of you joining us for the first time today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world through live, free, interactive broadcasts. And I want to do a special shout out to the huge audience we have today. This is one of the biggest programs we've ever set the stage for. We had over 230 groups register from around the world, over 8 provinces, 7 U.S. states, people from all across Canada, coast to coast to coast. So a huge welcome to all of you for joining us live and on YouTube today for this really special presentation. Now, of course, the reason you are all here is because this is such a special presentation. It is the first stop on our cross-Canada virtual road trip in partnership with Parks Canada and the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. Over the next month, we'll travel virtually coast to coast to coast to visit some of Canada's incredible national parks, historic sites, landmarks, and marine parks. Along the way, we'll meet incredible people, explore some unique ecosystems, and share some ongoing conservation projects. Find all the French and English events and registrations with this link here. Check this out. I'll leave that on the screen for a few seconds for you guys to check out. It's awesome. Again, we're doing a program in French tomorrow on the same topic, and you can find it all our programs over the next month and a bit with that link. For today's program, we are going to find out what hides under the cool veil of winter snow together. Our first stop takes us to Kouchibouguac National Park on the east coast of lovely New Brunswick. We're going to meet the conservation team behind the River Otter Monitoring Project. Even in winter, they're hard at work searching for signs of otter families in the snow. Science does not stop no matter what the season. Otters are excellent indicators of the health of freshwater ecosystems, so their presence indicates that the park is in good ecological health. I am so excited personally to be taking part in this program. I'm excited to watch in today. I hope you guys are as well. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha and Danielle at Kouchibouguac. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's dive in on this epic tour together. Thanks, guys.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sam. I'm the Public Outreach and Education Officer for Kouchibouguac National Park. So before we begin, we just want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. So today we are in Kouchibouguac National Park, which is on the east coast of New Brunswick, about an hour north of Moncton. It's a really beautiful area. It's a little bit rainy today, a little bit windy, so bear with us, but we love being outdoors with you. So today we're on the Kouchibouguac River. It's one of the really big rivers inside the park. It crosses through the park and goes way beyond the park boundaries. So a little fun fact about the word Kouchibouguac. The word Kouchibouguac comes from the Mi'kmaq people. It has 2 meanings. So some people say it means the river of long tides, and that's because the area we're in is very flat. So when the tides come in, the water comes far inland. Now other people say that the word Kouchibouguac means the river that flows and grows into the forest. So with that said, I'm going to leave you in the very capable hands of our amazing park ecologist, Danielle Garand. I'm going to hop behind the camera.
Hello everybody, my name is Danielle Garand and I'm a park ecologist. When I was young, I always knew that I wanted to work with nature, with animals, plants. I wanted to do conservation work. So after I finished my schooling, I went into post-secondary education. I enrolled into biology programs and I got my diplomas. And that's what allowed me to land this wonderful job working in a national park. So I'm the ecologist of Kouchibouguac National Park, but it's one of many parks across Canada. So the Parks Canada Agency has the mission to protect representative natural heritage area and cultural heritage area across the country. So each park is unique and protects unique habitats. Kouchibouguac, what we protect here is big coastal lagoons that are near the ocean and that are protected by barrier islands. And as Samantha said, we're in the flatlands here. We are in the lowlands of the province of New Brunswick. So these lagoons at high tide, the water will come into these rivers. So we have what we call tidal rivers or tidally influenced rivers. So I mentioned that I'm a park ecologist, but the main role of an ecologist in a national park is to manage and run an ecological integrity monitoring program. What is ecological integrity? Well, it's a concept that we use in Parks Canada to define the health of an ecosystem. So an ecosystem has ecological integrity when it has all the species and the plants and the habitat that that ecosystem is supposed to have if it is not under the adverse negative influence of human activity. If that ecosystem is changing, because things do change over time, the change should be slow enough that this ecosystem is capable of sustaining these different animals and plants over the long term as things change. It is not easy to monitor the ecological integrity of an ecosystem. The main reason why is that we don't have the means to monitor absolutely everything that is important in an ecosystem. It's too big. It's too complex. So what we do is we manage a set of indicators. So that's another concept that we work with, indicators of ecological integrity. Examples of indicators can be, for example, an important animal, for example, the top predator of the ecosystem. It can be important plants that create habitat for animals. It can also be an important ecological process. For example, let's take the rate of decomposition of leaves on the forest floor. That's pretty important, creating soil. It can also be what we call a physical measure of integrity. For example, water quality is often used to monitor ecosystem health. In Kouchibouguac National Park, one of our indicators is the river otter. It is used as the indicator of the health of our rivers. River otters make excellent indicators. The main reasons why is that it's a resident species. It is in our river year round. Summer, winter, they're always there. They don't migrate to other areas of the globe in the wintertime. They are also the top predator of that ecosystem. So if a river is healthy, it should be able to produce enough fish to sustain a river otter population, which is the top predator at the very top of the food chain. River otters are a pretty neat animal. They're made to go into the water. They have thick, dense fur that is waterproof. They have webbed feet, short limbs that are really strong. So they're not good on land. They have short limbs, but they're really strong, those limbs, to swim in the water. River otters, they will have a territory, an area that they use, but they will not defend that territory with aggression. Instead, what they will do is they will mutually avoid each other based on their scent, their odor. So basically, what they do in the environment, otters, they will not just like poop at random here and there in the environment. That's not what they do. What they will do is they will place their poop at a specific prominent areas within their territory. So at those places, they create a latrine. And what otters have, which is really neat, because they're kind of in the same family as weasels and skunk, they're smelly. And they have a gland at the basis of their tail that is called the anal gland. And that gland has really, really strong odor. So the liquid that comes out of that is really, really smelly. And what they will do is, at that latrine, they will put the content of that gland on the latrine. And really what they're saying is that this area, that's my place. That's my area. You guys, you other otters, you better keep out of here. This is my place. That's what they're saying when they're using their latrines. So we have a photo of what an otter looks like. So we can show you. And also what we have is props So we can show you part of the anatomy of a river otter. So right here I have a skull of a river otter. Can you see that? Yeah. So it's really with pointy teeth. So these teeth tell you that's a predator that eats other animals. And river otters, they eat all kinds of living aquatic creatures. But the main food item, the main thing they rely upon is fish. They eat fish most of the time. So these teeth are made to catch fish. And because it's a predator that eats so much fish, we can say that it is a piscivorous predator. Right here I have example of its paws. So you can see the web feet. And these paws too are quite strong, made for swimming, and they're quite agile. So a river otter can hold object in its hands. So he's a very agile animal. So really, a healthy river should have the presence of these animals in it inside Kouchibouguac National Park. But the most easy way for us to detect the presence of these animals is through their tracks that they make in the snow. So in the wintertime, they make it really easy to identify tracks, and we can show you a picture of what these tracks look like. So as you can see, it's quite obvious, and what they typically do is they like to slide on the snow. They jump, and sometimes they will slide on the snow. So these are really playful tracks that they make. And that is because these animals are really, really social animals that are really playful. They like to play with each other. When you see otters in the field, they look like they're always having some fun. So the young play a lot, and any young animal, for them, playful behavior is important because they learn with it. But with river otters, the adults are also very playful. And the main reason for that is that they create bonds. So when they play, they create stronger bonds between members of a group. So really, when they're playing, they're expressing, "Hey, I'm with you guys. I'm part of this group. I'm with you." And we have a photo or a video or a sequence of photo that shows you what a group of otter is like. So basically, they're always kind of on top of each other, always close to each other, on top of each other like that. So a typical family group would be composed of an adult female and her own young. So that is the most common group that we will find in Kouchibouguac National Park. The males tend to be solitary. So the males are more or less alone, they roam alone. But we can also find other types of river otter groups in Kouchibouguac National Park. For example, groups of young adults, both male and female, that are not always related to each other, can form groups. So they kind of look like a group of teenagers or a group of really good friends that are always hanging out together. So for part of the year, they can form these types of groups. And we can show you, before we show you what we do to monitor, what we can mention is that this animal has typically been a very important resource in Canada. So for centuries, the fur trade was an important economic activity in Canada. The fur of river otter is of such high quality that it was used as the standard to judge the quality of fur for all the other mammals, all the other animals that was trapped back then, to set their value in terms of money. Did you know also that Russia used to own Alaska? So Alaska, which is right next to Canada, used to be Russian land. It was sold to the United States of America. But the Russians, they did not ask for money when they sold it to the Americans. What they asked for in payment was river otter pelts. So it tells you the value of the fur of this animal. And we can show you what we look like when we do field work in Kouchibouguac to monitor these animals. Basically, we monitor them in the wintertime using snowmobiles. The reason for that is that with a snowmobile, we can survey a great distance very quickly and catch where all the fresh river otter tracks or river otter activity signs are located. That way we can see how many groups exist inside of a specific river. And what we found is this, which we can show you in the next picture. Typically, when we find river otter activity inside Kouchibouguac National Park, it kind of looks like this. It looks like an oasis, for example, where there would be a fresh water stream that is leaching out of the riverbank, which is warmer water. And this warmer water doesn't freeze, so there's a water access hole there that is natural. So it really is like an oasis in the wintertime, where they can easily go and access under the water to fish, and then they will come to the riverbank, they will poop on the riverbank, and then they will, use their anal gland to secrete that strong odor, and they will say, "This place is great, and this is now our place, and you other groups better keep out of here. This is our place." And they will slide on the snow on the riverbank and have a lot of fun at that place. So another picture that we can show you that we just took yesterday, so we found some and photographed it yesterday, is we can show you what river otter poop looks like. So basically it's just a pile of fish scales. So they eat a lot of fish, and basically the river otter scat is a pile of fish scale. It does not smell that bad, it smells like fish. So in our park, there's big changes that are occurring right now. These changes are global, and you might be noticing them too in your own areas. That is climate change. The winters are getting milder. There are more major storms each year. For river otters, that might not affect them that much directly because it's a really resourceful animal. But the fish populations on which they rely, we're not sure what's going to happen to them. So there might be big changes in the fish population that are important food for these animals. Another impact here in Kouchibouguac is our ability to do the surveys. So because of milder winters, sometimes the ice is not safe enough for us to go and keep monitoring the river otters. So in the future, we're looking to adapt our methods, use alternative methods to continue to monitor river otters. Because of climate change, it's now more important than ever before to keep running monitoring programs to create long-term data sets to be able to understand how these ecosystems are changing as a result of climate change. Also, if we collect enough data, we can even make projections and make predictions on what these habitats will look like in the future, and that will help us to better manage these ecosystems. So I hope you enjoyed this little presentation that we did on river otters for you guys, and if you have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Danielle, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and for braving the elements today to share such a neat story with us. The weather radio broadcast. So yeah, guys, we're going to dive in with questions. I'm going to just remove them for a second so I can make sure we all hear this. For everyone on YouTube, if you're a teacher, we have over 15 full classrooms joining us on YouTube. Please share your questions in the chat. Let me know where you're joining from, and we'll take some from you guys. We've also got 5 live classes with us from across Canada. So I'm going to dive in with them first and start with our Q&A period. I'm so excited to get started with this. We've got over 25 minutes to ask questions, so let's get to it. Mr. Boccia joining us in Toronto. If you guys want to kick us off with a question, come on in.
Hi. I know you talked a bit about otter pelts. We were wondering, have otters had a problem in New Brunswick, or how are their population levels doing?
Well, there's upwards of 15 species of otters all around the world. All of them are in danger or have a threatened or endangered or critically endangered, or some of them are so rare that they don't even officially have a status. For example, in Indonesia, they have extremely rare otter species over there. Here in our area, what we have, like Canada has two species of otters. On the Pacific coast, we have the marine otter, which is endangered. But in the rest of Canada, and in all parts of Canada, we have this species is the river otter, which the scientific name is Lontra canadensis. That species in particular is the only species that is still common and not threatened at the moment. So it's a species that we can all have a chance to enjoy in the future. In the past, most of these trapped animals have been endangered or really low. An example is the beaver. The beaver was almost exterminated from Canada because people were trapping so much of them, they were not paying attention to the fate of that species. Otters and other fur-bearing animals had the same fate, but nowadays most of these animals have recovered and are quite common.
Fantastic first question. Thank you, Mr. Boccia. All right, we're going to head to St. Patrick's School, Miss Wilton's class. I know you guys were having some audio difficulties earlier, but hopefully it's all good now. And we're seeing you share your question in the chat box. I'll come to you guys and check it out. Hi, St. Patrick's. Let's unmute your mic. Hi there, guys. Can we hear you? I don't think so. Oh, dear. So share a question in the chat, and then I'll be able to take it and relay it to Danielle in just a minute. So I'll come to you guys in 2 seconds. Let's go to Miss Young's class. They're grade 6s joining us. If you want to unmute your mic, Miss Young, go for it.
Hi, we wanted to know how many otters are in the park, and how do you keep track of them?
So what we have in Kouchibouguac is a situation where we would typically have 1 or 2 family groups for one river. And on top of that, you would have maybe 1 to 3 solitary male that kind of overlap these family groups and that are located into smaller watersheds. So a family group can be anywhere from a mother with 2 youngs to a mother with 6 youngs. And every river or every watershed in Kouchibouguac has otters in them. So we're really like a haven for river otters. In fact, we're probably like a source population where each year river otters disperse and migrate to other parts of the province coming out of the national park. So we could have like upwards of 100 river otters easy. It's not an easy thing to say absolutely how many we have, because what we monitor is a specific number of rivers, and we monitor the trend. Is it stable? Is it declining? Is it augmenting? So what we obtain is more like a measure of the density of otter groups in these rivers. But if we would extrapolate, we would say we could easily have upwards of 100 river otters in the whole park. The way that we keep track of them is a bit like the photos we've shown, that we go through snowmobile and we monitor the tracks. So when we are lucky, maybe once a day in the winter, we could find a group and we arrive upon where a group is at. But most of the time, what we document is tracks. So we don't see them that often. And we would follow a group. And based on their tracks, we would eventually be able to make out the number of animals in that group. So we could say, oh, like this is an adult with 3 small young ones.
I love that answer. And I mean, I'm so glad you brought up the snowmobile again. You mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast that you after high school and you finished. And I know for students, it can seem daunting to think about all those years after high school you have to go. But if you do that, you get to have a job where you get to drive your snowmobile and study that you go look for amazing creatures, which I think is well worth it. Very, very cool. Danielle, a question from St. Patrick's School, Miss Wilton's classes, and over from a bunch of YouTube groups. Is the skull real? You showed us the skull. You showed us these foot pads. Are they real from actual?
This one in particular is a replica. So it's an exact replica in all the small details. So the proportion is exactly what an otter skull is like, but it's not a real one. It's a replica based on plastic. but it's really precise, and it allows you to see in detail all the little details of the teeth, the dentition here.
I love looking at mammal skulls because you get the sense of all those teeth, what they do, and how the things hunt. So very, very cool. The other question from them, the longer question from them are, what season do otters have their babies in?
Actually, it's in late winter.
Really?
So we're coming into the season where the females would have had their young, so they would be like really young at the moment.
How cool is that? How nice. Very rare to hear something like that. I like that. That's an unexpected
And
answer.
another thing is that they right now they would be in their den. The mother would be in their den, and river otters, they don't typically excavate their own den. So maybe we can say they're lazy or maybe they're efficient, but what they do is they recycle the dens of other animals.
Yeah.
Maybe a fox den that is near the riverbank, a muskrat burrow,
Yeah.
or what is preferred by river otters in Kouchibouguac is abandoned beaver lodge. So that is what they use in terms of having shelter.
I think we'll stick with a instead of lazy, although lazy is kind of funny. Let's dive in with some Miss Viato's class, and then I'll take a few YouTube questions before we get second round. Viato's class, if you want to come on in, joining us, come on in, guys. Hi.
Hi. My question was like, how do you get the like his job?
Oh, could you repeat that?
How do you like get to be what his job was like?
Yeah. So how do you end up with your role, Danielle?
Well, the main thing is to finish school, so get your high school diploma, and then you can enroll in post-secondary education. There is the university route. You can do a bachelor's degree, but there are also technical colleges. Maybe in your area, there's colleges. So university is really strong on theory, the theoretical aspect, and colleges is really good in applied sciences. What we do in Kouchibouguac National Park is a bit of both. We generate research questions, we identify problems, we partner with universities to answer these questions. But the other important thing is to keep in mind is that we're very much involved in the applied sciences. So we use methods in the field, and that is really technical, and technical colleges are really good at that. So if I look at the team I am a part of, we're in conservation, we're a 12-person team, and we have people that come from both these worlds of education. Like I went to university, and a lot of us also came through the colleges. University is really strong on theory, research. The colleges are really good in applied sciences. And when you come out from a technical college also, these persons have a lot of on-the-ground, outdoorsy courses, so they already come with experience doing work in the field. So that is their strength. So we're a combination of both. We have people from both these types of backgrounds. So if you're interested in a job in biology, the key is, find your passion, for example, biology, and then find an opportunity to enroll in a program. It could be a 4-year program or a 2-year program with a lot of practice in the field, and study hard.
I love that message. And I mean, one of the things we always like to highlight at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is that if you are interested in something like Parks Canada, job with Parks Canada, and you're not necessarily interested in scientists like Danielle is, there are so many jobs available. If you're interested in business, being a driver, being an administrator, do you have more to say? Or I didn't want to stop you.
Yes, of course. In a national park, and we are managed, by the way, by what is called a field unit. And a field unit has historical sites and one or more national parks that are managed by the team. And inside a field unit, you have all kinds of jobs. Samantha deals with messaging with the public. there's mechanics, there's plumbers, there's electricians, there's all kinds of people doing things. There's interpreters that educate the public. So if you have an educational vocation that you're finding for yourself, Parks Canada could be a great home for you as well.
I love that. I hope for our audience today, many of you might have had the chance to visit a Parks Canada site in person in better times. And hopefully you get the chance to visit as we open up again this year later on. But the interpretive staff at Parks Canada sites are some of the best I've ever met in the entire world. So I really hope we all get that chance. All right, guys, I'm going to dive in with some questions from YouTube, and then I'll come back to our live classes for another round. Miss Mustard's class joining us in Tribune Drive women. They want to know how big otter babies can be. How big?
How big? Well, if you include the tail, and they do have a long tail which balances the animal for swimming, they will be a bit over a meter, a little bit more than a meter long. And the males can be up to 5% larger than the females, so you don't notice it that much, but the male tends to be a little bit bigger than the female.
And then when they're babies, when they're first born, are they really small or are they pretty big compared to the parents?
Oh, they're really small, really tiny.
Well, that's adorable. We'll have to sneak in a baby photo into the French presentation tomorrow, but that sounds amazing. Miss Buchanan class, they're joining all the way in Manitoba. They want to know, how long do river otters
Live?
Could you repeat?
Yeah, how long do they live? What's their life expectancy?
Well, as a wild otter, they would not live that long, but even a 4 to 5 year old otter in the wild is an old otter. So they live a few years. Life is rough as a wild animal, and for example, river otters are known to bust holes in beaver dams, and they do that with their teeth. So sometimes, you can find a very old otter which is missing a lot of its teeth, which could, eventually have problem catching fish, and that limits their life expectancy. So in the winter, there's ice. They can bust holes through ice if they need, if they're stuck in a place. So they lead quite a hard and very active life, and they don't live very long.
I was going to a beaver lodge. I just knocked and see if they opened up. Strategy. Two more quick questions from YouTube, and then we'll go back to Kouchibouguac in a second. Miss Shaw's class, they're joining us all the way in San Antonio, Texas. They want to know, how do otters select a mate? Are they picky? Are they just, when they run into another one, do they just mate with them? What's the situation?
Well, what happens is they're not necessarily picky, but what happens is, as I've mentioned a little bit before, is that they mutually avoid each other. But that involves more or less the family groups. But the males are solitary, and the males avoid each other among them, but their territory of a lone male will kind of overlap the territory of a female or a family group, and often a single male, that territory can partially overlap several family groups. So that is kind of how they meet, and they can mate that way. But that male will not stay as part of that family group. They will really tend to be solitary, but they will have these encounters. And that is how the female, can mate, get pregnant, and then form her family.
I mean, it's not a surprise at all, but you really know your stuff. We're getting a lot of great questions here, and some really nuanced stuff about otters, so I really appreciate these answers. This is great. One last question from YouTube. I thought this was so Miss Sultan's class wants to know, does the thickness or color of the otter's fur change during the seasons?
We're not noticing much of a change. Like in the wintertime, they will still be quite dark, like dark brown. An otter is really active early in the morning, really early in the morning when the sun rises, and after supper, like early in the evening when the sun is setting. So if you would be in a place like Kouchibouguac and you want to see an otter, those are the times you have the highest chance to see them. But in the winter time, they can be active in the middle of the day. For example, they can lie on the ice next to these water access holes, and that way they kind of look like little seals. They're kind of just hanging out in the middle of the day, and we see them as a dark brown animal on white ice.
Very, very cool. I love that snow picture earlier. I think that's so neat to see that you can find animals like that, regardless of season. So very neat. Mr. Boccia's class, come on back in, share a question with us, and let's do our final 4 questions together.
Hi, my students wanted to know how many young will an otter have in a season?
It would usually be like 3 or 4. The biggest we've seen is 6. A female with 6 young would be a very busy female. We've seen it one time, not directly, but with through the winter tracks. We had, that's the maximum size of a group is 7 that we've seen.
Okay, fascinating. I've seen in here in Toronto, we've got beavers, and I've seen 3 and 4 babies before. So you can see that they get quite a bit higher with otters. Miss Wilton's class, St. Patrick's School, they've asked a ton of questions in the chat bar, so thanks for the enthusiasm, guys. One that I really like: are otter babies born in the water or the land?
They're born on land, so they will be born in that terrestrial den. And so basically, river otters, we call them semi-aquatic. That is because they can't be in the water all the time. They have to come to the surface to breathe air, just like we do. And they have to go on the riverbank to be in a shelter. So they will sleep on land in their shelter. They will find something that they can recycle, kind of minimally excavate and enlarge whatever old burrow they can find. And those are the types of places where they will also have their young. So the young will be born in the underground in a burrow.
I'm really glad you touched upon the semi-aquatic bit. If there's been one question on YouTube relentlessly, it's like, how much are they in the water? How much are they on the land? So I'm glad we got a chance to cover that. Let's go to the class now. If you want to unmute your microphone, go for it.
We wanted to know, how can you tell the gender and the age of an otter?
The age could be quite difficult. It's possible, like if you would find like a dead otter, for example, an otter that has died, you could use the teeth and you could cut layers in that teeth of that animal. Like you can calculate an age. But other than that, what we tend to classify them is as an adult or a young. We kind of limit ourselves to that because we monitor based on snow tracks. So we have really little interaction with the actual animals in Kouchibouguac National Park, and we kind of like it that way. In terms of the sex, it's the same thing for us in the field. It's more the context. So at a certain time of year, a female typically has her young with them. So that is how we can count the number of females. And the males will be solitary, so we can kind of assume that a certain track is from a solitary male. If you look at them with binoculars, you would not be able to tell a male from a female, except maybe if you see an animal that looks like it's like a bit bigger than the other adults, but it would be really rare to see them together because these males are solitary. So in the field, it's based on the context of the tracks. If you would have access physically to the animal, the body of the animal, you'd have to look at genitalia, and then you would be able to determine the sex of the animal.
Great question, guys. And we're going to wrap up with one more for this the Otters class. They're joining us in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Just unmute that microphone, guys. Come on in.
My question is, you mentioned that otters eat lots of different types of fish. Do you know what their most popular type of fish they eat is?
Well, a long time ago, out here, we looked at fish scats in great detail. So there is, in the scats, it's filled with fish scales because they cannot digest the fish scales. There's fish bones as well. And there's another thing also called otolith. And for a fish, they have like two pieces of rocks that are behind the brain and that float in a liquid. On each side of the brain of a fish, they have these little pieces of white rock that float inside there. And that's how a fish is balanced. It can balance itself, and a fish is elegant in the water, swims straight. Well, this is kind of their geocompass, and they know how they're positioned in the water. It's like an instinct for them, but it's actually done physically with otolith, and these are not digestible by otters. So when you look into a scat, the best way to identify the fish species from the remains in an otter scat is through the otolith, because each fish will have an otolith of a different form, so you can know the fish species based on the shape of the otolith. And scientists have even produced atlas filled with pictures of otolith, and you look at an otolith, you can say, oh, that's a certain type of fish. Out here in Kouchibouguac, our rivers have a lot of salt water in them, because of the flat topography. The tides come into the rivers. So most areas where our river otters hang out is actually estuarine waters, partially salt water. And in those areas, what we found out is that, especially through the winter time, what allows them to persist in the territory more than any other fish is rainbow smelt, which is not a very big fish, but they're quite abundant in our area, and they eat a big quantity of them. Once in a while, we'd see an otolith of a bigger fish, like from a big trout or an Atlantic salmon. But really, it's quite rare. They don't catch a lot of big fish. They catch a lot of small fish, and that is what is important to them.
What a great last question to wrap up. I'm so glad you talked about otoliths. I didn't expect that to come in today's presentation. It's one of the coolest things in biology, so thank you so much for sharing that. Before we wrap up, I'm going to come back in 1 minute just for a wrap-up, see if there's any last message you want to share, but I want to make sure our students at home and joining us live get the chance to learn more about this amazing series that we've got going on. So again, this is our series, our cross-Canada virtual road trip. We at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants are doing this in partnership with the teams at Parks Canada, of which their website is below, and the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. So do check out their websites. They're both amazing organizations, and we are so excited to be beginning this journey with them together. I also want to stress, if you want to learn more about the science and conservation happening in Parks Canada sites across Canada, check out this website below. We can also share these with all our registered classes at the end of the broadcast. And if you want to learn specifically more about Kouchibouguac National Park, here is the website up for you guys in English. Tomorrow we'll share it in French as well, of course, for the French broadcast. Again, this is going to be an 18-part series, French and English, coast to coast to coast across Canada. And I really, really appreciate our well over 400 kids today from across Canada, the US, and beyond for tuning in today. Danielle, before we wrap up, is there any last message you want to leave kids with on otters before we do our sort of official goodbye?
Well, I would say that if you live in Canada, keep an eye out for river otters, because we have national parks all over the country. There's natural areas in every province. So if you're near a river or a lake, keep an eye out. Early in the morning, 4 to 6 a.m. in the morning, 6 to 7 p.m. in the evening. If you're near water, you could see otters.
That's so exciting. I mean, I think it's worth the bleary eyes and extra coffee to go out and see such an amazing creature. I want to leave you to get out before the Wicked Witch of the West blows in. It's been quite the weather out there, so we really, really appreciate you tuning in with us and sharing your story and such amazing information. Our classes' feedback on YouTube has been tremendous. And Danielle and Samantha, what we do at the end of every broadcast, I'm going to bring in our classes. So St. Patrick's, Miss Young, and Miss Viato's class. If you want to join me in saying a big thank you for let's come on in and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much, everybody.